So flexible workflow for Parked Invoice as complete. In this video, we will see how to configure and use flexible workflow for Parked Invoice as complete. How to configure it. So previously, activate workflow in customizing. So for this point, you have SAP help with the detail of perform customizing for the flexible workflow for supplier invoice. Very well. And you have also OASS note 280418, 22804.158 configuration of flexible workflow for supplier invoice. You just have to follow this OSS note. It's perfect. So once you have done access, manage workflow for supplier invoice. Manage workflow for supplier invoice. Like this. Select workflow for Parked Invoice as complete. Like this. So add new workflow. Create. Define general data. So we create a workflow for purchase order. So new workflow for people for purchase order. Okay. Then properties. Then start condition. That is most important, start condition. So define the precondition. So I define that is invoice is based on purchase order. Plus only in case we have a blocking due to price variance exist. Alternative, same things based on purchase order, but where we have also a quantity variance. Okay. Add step sequence for that. Create. So we defined general step. So in this case, step name is Betty. Release of complete invoicer. So, and I select in assignment by role, yes, and assignment determination by body. That means you have defined previously or activate the body. When I say the body, you have MRM workflow agent. Okay, that is the same for supplier invoice, park or block. Okay, one of the recipients, all the recipients. So I suppose that one of the recipients received the workflow is released is good. But if you make all recipients, you have two recipients, so you need the two recipient release to unlock the supplier invoice. Okay, then step condition. Step condition is blocking due to variance exists, or okay, that is important to have this information. It's precondition. You have some exception. Okay, you click on create, and the most important, save, and the most important, activate. So right now we have a workflow without purchase order, and we have a workflow for PO. For without is very simple. At least one non-purchase order item, and that is the person responsible for all used cost center. So right now I will show you all the process. So very simple, like create, manage purchase order. You can define several steps in this case. So how to use it? You create a purchase order, the vendor invoice arrive with ADI or with the new by eDoc or anything else, or you can create manually. An accountant clerk check if the statute park and complete is set. With the configuration place, the workflow is triggered if there's any price difference, only in this case. So I create a purchase order like this, copy. Okay, I order, I note my purchase order. Okay, I do the post goods receipt for purchasing document. Okay, like this. I select the line and I post. Okay, and then I click create supplier, create supplier invoice. So I put over the monetary. I suppose that is done by central invoice management or automatic. Okay, but I do it manually for this demo. So I put all the information 1, 2, 3. Okay, the amount 15555. Okay, and I put my purchase order like this. Okay, there is the differences. I adjust because I want to save this case. Okay, I click on check. I've got a message that, okay, price too high. Okay, it's good. So in this, I can click directly, for example, save as complete. Document has been saved as complete. If I have a look right now to my supplier invoice, I check that park and completed. My approval status in approval is if I go in approval detail, I see the name of my flexible workflow body is ready and I am the processor. And I see in the notification release that is my supplier invoice. So I go inside my inbox. I display the information. I just have to check why I have a double. So I release. Okay, I submit. Okay. If I go in supplier, supplier invoice list, I go inside my supplier invoice that I said, and I check right now, it's with the status posted. And release, status release. Okay, agent by determination. Okay, in 1 minute. So it's perfect. So why I've got another one sometimes, because I activate two kind of supplier. So we can see. I release, yes. Okay, I show you just one thing because I activate two workflow. So in this case, you has to unlock for the park and unlock for the block. So manage supplier, so manage workflow for supplier. So sometimes if you have workflow for block invoice and you have park invoice, so in first time workflow for PO, okay, release, and then you have this one that has been activated also. So a double, so select one or another one, but perhaps not both. But just for demonstration, I activate different. So if I have a look right now to supplier invoice list, recent activity, supplier invoice list. Okay, I click on go. And I see my supplier invoice is posted, approved, and not blocked. Perfect. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.